You're watching We All Be News Radio, News Free Dixie for the 21st century. I'm Thaddeus Matthews.
Greetings, everybody, boys and girls, scholars and laymen. Welcome to another wonderful, informative or infotaining, edutaining edition of the Artivist Thinks Thoughts Provocateur. This is I, Brother Ron, also known as R2C2H2, the Artivist, and welcome to We All Be News Free Dixie for the 21st century. Let me make sure everything is working. Got a very interesting show. I think I want to thank you all for tuning in and not just tuning out. Hope y'all can hear me. Hey, Flower Child, thank you for tuning in. I'm just making sure everything's okay, that you all can hear me loud and clear. Let me know if you can hear me and loud and clear. I want to get on with the show. We got a lot to talk about. Good. Hey, E1 Drick. I think. Thank you, King BJ. What's up, brother? Ready for the revolution? There's a lot to talk about, and I just want to put my spin on it. All right, thank you. I'm glad the games they play. Thank y'all for tuning in. I got a couple of good shows coming up today for you all. But I want to talk about this Grandmaster J thing and put it in some type of historical context. As you all know or may not know, you should know that they arrested our dear brother Grandmaster J after he did his podcast Facts Over Feelings on YouTube. I would suggest you check out Grandmaster J's latest podcast on YouTube. I never had problems with Grandmaster J. I thought he was much needed, and I think it's unfortunate a lot of times that our people, we don't know how to trust each other on certain things or even how to forgive each other. We forgive the devil for giving us more hell, but we can't forgive each other over minor disagreements. But I just want to put this in a historical context about what happened to Grandmaster J. Currently, I don't know all the details like many of you all. I am not a follower of, in fact, but I have no problem with his existence because it's a part of our tradition to have that type of mindset and no organizations around. As you know, today is December 4th, is the 51st anniversary of the state-sponsored assassination of Chairman Fred Hampton Sr., the chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party, along with his defense captain, Mark Clark, back on December 4th, 1969, in a pre-dawn raid on his apartment, I believe on the west side of Chicago. This man was sleeping in his bed. Come to find out, his chief bodyguard, William O'Neill, was an FBI agent provocateur. There's a movie coming out next year called Judas and the Black Messiah to talk about that relationship. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to put all this stuff in historical context. But let me read a disclaimer. Come on, forever talking about Fred Hampton Sr. It's important that our generations, because a lot of y'all still drinking that Obama Kool-Aid, and y'all gonna recognize that this brother did more for black folks in 21 years than Obama ever did, even while he was 8 years as president of the United States. That's Fred Hampton Sr. And he was just 21 years young. Imagine that. This man was conscious at 21. You know, Dr. King, you know, we just acknowledged December 1st as the 65th anniversary of the start of the Montgomery bus boycott. Dr. King was 26 years young, still working on his PhD, the new preacher at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery. You know, Malcolm, I believe, was still in prison at 21. So Fred Hampton had that consciousness and then wokeness, as they say, at 21, being spied upon by the government when he was 14, 15 years old, and his life ended. Imagine if Fred Hampton even lived just to be 39 years young. The things he would have done, because he was the original motivation behind the thing, the Rainbow Coalition. And his Rainbow Coalition talking about uniting the different ethnic street gangs of Chicago. You understand? He talking about working with the Young Lords. He talking about working with Jeff Fort's Black Peastone Nation, the Blackstone Rangers, right? With, you know, Jeff Fort became the L. Ruckins, right? He's in Supermax right now. You know, Larry Hoover, another Chicago person, in Supermax. And all these guys were from the South. You understand? You know, Larry Hoover and Jeff Fort was from Mississippi. Fred Hampton, people from Louisiana. He's buried down in Louisiana, right? His mom was actually the babysitter for Emmett Till. So Emmett Till got killed back in, and he was 14 years old, right? When he was 14 years old down in Mississippi, but Fred Hampton Sr.'s mom was Emmett Till's babysitter. And I remember 10 years ago, actually, I spoke with Fred Hampton's mom 10 years ago in December. I spoke to his mom and thanked her on the phone. It was amazing. I mean, she was cool, humble, and I thank her for creating a man, having a son like Fred Hampton, and all the heartache and all the sacrifices that entail. So I had a chance to talk to Fred Hampton's mom on the phone as well. I interviewed his brother 10 years ago, and now they're both deceased. They passed away within the last 5 years. God bless their souls, the true righteous ancestors, right? So yeah, we're gonna get into all that. We're gonna put Grandmaster Jay in that narrative because I pride myself. Nobody does. I'm not bragging, but I don't think nobody really does how I do it. You know what I'm saying? Like I got my own set of prescription only magic glasses, and I'm not interested in y'all agreeing with everything I have to say, but I'm more interested in serving my point of view and hope to give y'all the courage to shine y'all light as well and to amplify your voices in this time of unrest and uncertainty and deception and illusion. You know, we on the matrix. We in the matrix, right? It's time to break the matrix. It's time to put a glitch in the matrix. So, I mean, it's not about really trusting Grandmaster Jay. I just want you to understand what is happening, and this is nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. To quote or paraphrase President Harry Truman, the only thing new is the history you don't know. The only thing new is the history you don't know. Let me read a disclaimer. We got to pick your battles, but disclaimer. The views expressed by hosts and guests on the We All Be TV platform are not the official views, opinions, beliefs, or perspectives of We All Be News or the We All Be Group Incorporated. We All Be News is an organization that thoroughly believes in supplementing the information narrative that is usually supplied by the corporate news entities, right? With those viewpoints, expressions which may be marginalized or ignored for a plethora of reasons. We are about informing the general public on alternative perspectives as it relates to news and information and letting the general public be the ultimate judge in deciding on how to use said information. Informed citizens are responsible citizens. Thank you for your support. And speaking of support, thank you, A.L.L, being consistent, man, for the Do Nation. And these things go a long way. This help me understand if there's a need for what I'm talking about, because I could take a break, whatever. But I've been putting out these videos because a lot of things are on my mind. You know, December 4th is actually the 51st anniversary of the birth or debut of Sean Carter. Jay-Z was born December 4th, 1969. It's his birthday, y'all. So for better or for worse, whatever you think about Jay-Z, I think it's fascinating to see a rapper live to be 51 years old, to have a dead bod. You know, people were shaming Jay-Z about his dead bod. You know, and he was on the beach. They showed the pictures. Trippie Redd went in on him. Yeah, I know who Trippie Redd is. I know I'm 40 years old, but because my CD player broke in my car, I know who Trippie Redd is. And they went into his, his body, called him 444, his last album. That's actually his how much he weighed. But here's the thing. It's a blessing to see a black man in that profession of rapping live to be 51 with family, with wife and kids. And he's a billionaire, right? He's a billionaire. So with all the things happening to rappers these days, with the killing of King Von and Pop Smoke and Mo 3 and XX Tentacion and so many others, wow. And then rappers, normally when you turn 40 or 30, you old, you pass your prime. But to see people like Jay-Z and 2 Chainz and Rick Ross, whatever you may have, you might not agree with their lyrics or music, but it's like, it's like with the white rockers. Like you look at Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and Eric Clapton. It's good to see black folks not have to retire from their passions, whatever you may think about their music. But I just want to give a shout out to Jay-Z. And also, today is the death anniversary of one of my favorite truth tellers, Pimp C from UGK. He was more to me than just a rapper. He was a prophet of sorts. Pimp C from Port Arthur, Texas, down in the dirty down in Texas, man. The third coast, the Gulf Coast, Pimp C passed away unexpectedly December 4th, 2007. It don't seem been 13 years. But in Los Angeles, under questionable circumstances, of course. But I want to tell you about Pimp C and his connection to Fred Hampton, right? Pimp C died on December 4th, the same December 4th, like Fred Hampton Sr. died. And he was born on December 29th, just like Fred Hampton Jr. So Pimp C died on December 4th, like Fred Hampton Sr., although it was 2007. Fred Hampton Sr. was 69, and he was born December 29th, like Fred Hampton Jr. See how it works? Coincidence? I don't know. But it is something like I like to share. Like I said, I'm going to offer y'all some interesting perspectives and takes that you're not going to get anywhere else as far as new black media is concerned, because I'm my own person. I'm a different breed. I just got through listening to some Thelonious Monk, before I got on air. And Thelonious Monk said, even if it takes you 20 years to get an audience, keep doing what you do. And he also, to paraphrase Thelonious Monk, he said to be a genius is just to be yourself. You don't have to, these are my words, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You got to be the most talented person in the room. You just got to be honest and truthful to thyself, to thy own self, be true, and then make your contribution. That's how you make a difference in the world, just by being yourself and sharing who you are and what you think about and what you're passionate about with the world. So I want to talk a little bit more about Fred Hampton. Somebody said, okay, the one rappers are not old after 30 or 40. It's this society promotion of death and division to young blacks, so they wouldn't listen to the elders who would give them game that they never got from fathers. Yeah, this is part of COINTELPRO. The music has been co-opted. You understand? Like, somebody like Tupac, can you imagine the stuff that Tupac will be doing right now, approaching his 50th birthday? They had to get rid of him at 25. So we are, as a community, under a state of arrested development. I just talked about Fred Hampton. Tupac, mom was a Black Panther. Tupac knew about Fred Hampton growing up. You understand? And think about at 25, when Tupac died, the millions of people he was reaching at 25. He reached more people while he was alive. No disrespect to Fred Hampton or Huey, but he's a cub of their struggle. And he was able to reach so many people while he's alive. Matter of fact, before Tupac died, he was getting really into politics. There's a footage of him at a rally in California with some of the death row artists, and talking about getting people engaged from a voting point of view. If Tupac had lived, he probably would try to start a third party, a political party. So they had to get rid of Tupac. They neutralized Tupac, right? Thank you, Stuart Parker. We love you madly for the Do Nation. So getting deep into Tupac, I said Tupac mama, Afeni Shakur, was part of the Panther 21. She was set up by Gene Roberts, who was the former bodyguard, the chief bodyguard for Malcolm X. Gene Roberts, undercover NYPD, part of the BOSSI program. That's BOSSI program. That's COINTELPRO, NYPD, FBI, CIA, right? But he was a Black Panther person, and he set up the Panther 21. You were Black Panthers that were accused of trying to blow up historic landmarks in New York City. Afeni defended herself in court, and she was pregnant with Tupac while she was in prison. That's who Tupac is. Tupac was a targeted individual even in the womb. So you got to understand why they got rid of Tupac at 25, why he was neutralized at 25. So that's all. And also, you look at the Nation of Islam with Malcolm, the national secretary for the Nation of Islam used to be one of Malcolm's good friends, John Ali, who's still alive as far as I know today. He was FBI. He controlled the correspondence and the communication between the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, our righteous ancestor. So you don't know what got lost in translation if the guy who was the middleman for both Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad was also government, FBI. You understand what I'm saying? People talk about these Black Like Me, the Black Lives Matter, What We Believe coloring book that came out, a lot of that controversy. I would love y'all didn't check out Dr. Randy Short's channel for a great infotaining and educating breakdown of that What We Believe Black Lives Matter coloring book. But I want to say this is that back in 1968, the FBI released a Black Panther coloring book and sent it to white families across the country. Y'all can look up the Black Panther coloring book FBI. And there's a website that talks about this, about them sending these coloring books to white households throughout the country and trying to show Black Panthers killing the pigs, like the police officers they would call pigs, right? They show pigs in police uniforms. So they had this over hype boogification, this boogeymanfication of, I don't know that boogeymanfication, I'm gonna make up a word, of the Black Panther Party to scare white people. The fear of a black planet, a fear of a black country, the fear of the Black Panthers, right? So this is nothing new. This is all COINTELPRO. Go back to Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA, U.S. intelligence, controls the media. Who was the lady that ran the Washington Post for years, Katharine Graham? Her husband was suicided. He was a close friend of JFK. They suicided her husband. You understand what I'm saying? Look it up. Take a look. It's all online. But let's talk about Fred Hampton. Then we'll get to Grandmaster Jay and his fit in the historical context of our struggle, of our story. So, thank you, family, for tuning in. If you like the words from Brother Herb, please subscribe to We All BTV. It's funny because it's like I lose a lot of subscribers now. Like I'll gain subscribers, then I lose a whole bunch of y'all. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if they doing it. Y'all just don't like me anymore. I don't know what it is, but it is what it is. But let me find some things. Feed my people. Dick said I was the feeder, so I'm gonna feed y'all something. Let me find some stuff. Let me see. Thank y'all for tuning in and not tuning out, but tuning in. Okay, yeah, this is a page. Fred Hampton, COINTELPRO, FBI informants, William O'Neill. That guy on the left is William O'Neill. That's the guy who set up Fred Hampton. You know, on the right, that's Fred Hampton in his casket at 21 years young. At the bottom is people. It was an overflow crowd. A lot of the black leadership who's who was in attendance. Ralph Abernathy of the SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Also, Jesse Jackson, who came up. You know, people think the Rainbow Coalition idea came from Jesse Jackson. He got that from Fred Hampton. Jesse got that because Rainbow Coalition for Fred Hampton was uniting the street tribes of Chicago, the gangs of Chicago, like the Students for a Democratic Society. That's the white gang, the Young Lords, the Puerto Ricans. Jeff Fort people, the the Blackstone Nation, right? The P Stone Rangers, whatever. Y'all know in Chicago what I'm talking about. So his thing was try to unite the gangs under a code and to politicize the gangs to engage and empower the masses. So Fred Hampton really was a black messiah. He was a real black messiah. Thank you for the donation. Let's see, I want to say y'all shout Lamont Thornton. Thank you so much. Thank y'all for tuning in and receiving this message. So we're going to talk about this because there's a movie coming out next year. I think Ryan Coogler of Black Panther fame, the director for Black Panther and Fruitvale Station. He's an executive producer, I believe, on the movie, and it's starring Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton, who also was in the movie Black Panther with Chadwick Boseman, who we just lost this year. So the interest is the connection, right? And Lakeith Stanfield is playing William O'Neill. So I don't trust Hollywood to tell the story for real, like it should be told. I always tell people that Black history is better than science fiction or any Hollywood movie. Fred Hampton, in my mind, was a real superhero. He was a real Superman. I mean, he was. He really was. So, let me put up the picture and let me talk about William O'Neill and Fred Hampton right quick, and we'll get to the other stuff that I want to discuss. I'm still trying to learn my ins and outs on this stuff that we got, this internet, the StreamYard. It's very fascinating. I'm trying to set it up. So much to talk about, y'all. We got that. Yeah, this is fascinating. These are exciting times we're living in. I don't know how anybody could really be bored, the stuff that's going on. But let me set it up correctly. Share this screen. I got so many tabs open. I'm guilty of having a lot of tabs open. Yeah, that's my life. Doing too much by trying to get some things done. So let's go. That's William O'Neill on the left. Fred Hampton at the top right. That's him in the casket. And those the people at the overflow at his homegoing services. Like over 5,000 people came out to pay their respects to Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. William O'Neill, the FBI informant who infiltrated the Black Panthers, responsible for the assassination of Black Panther Party Chairman Fred Hampton. Mourners passed by the coffin of Black Panther Party leader Fred Hampton at his memorial service on December 9th, 1969, at the First Baptist Church of Melrose Park. Hampton was murdered during a police raid on December 4th, 1969. In late 1968, the Racial Matters Squad of the FBI's Chicago field office brought in an individual named William O'Neill, who had recently been arrested twice for interstate car theft and impersonating a federal officer. In exchange for having his felony charges dropped and a monthly stipend, O'Neill agreed to infiltrate the BPP, the Black Panther Party, as a counterintelligence operative. He joined the party and quickly rose in the organization, becoming director of chapter security and Hampton's bodyguard. By means of anonymous letters, the FBI sowed distrust and eventually instigated a split between the Panthers and the Rangers, with O'Neill himself instigating an armed clash between the two on April 2nd, 1969. The Panthers became effectively isolated from their power base in the ghetto, so the FBI went to work to undermine its ties with other radical organizations. O'Neill was instructed to create a rift between the party and the Students for a Democratic Society, whose Chicago headquarters was only blocks from that of the Panthers. The Bureau released a batch of racist cartoons in the Panthers' name, that's the coloring book, aimed at alienating white activists, and launched a disinformation program to forestall the realization of the Rainbow Coalition, the original Rainbow Coalition. In repeated directives, Hoover demanded that the COINTELPRO personnel destroy what the BPP stood for and eradicate its Serve the People program. You got to understand, the Black Panther Party had free health clinics. They were the ones who started feeding kids before school, and they also started sickle cell testing. This is what the Black Panthers were doing. This is what made them an internal threat to America, according to J. Edgar Hoover, was that they were actually serving the community, being real community organizers and engagers, testing for sickle cell, free health clinics, political education, feeding kids before they went to school so they could focus on their schoolwork. This is what they were guilty of. Crazy. Documents secured by Senate investigators in the early 1970s revealed that the FBI actively encouraged violence between the Panthers and other groups. They separate the head from the body. This is what they do. White power is divide and conquer. Black power is unity and solidarity. The system, this racist system, thrives off so-called white power, which is to keep people divided so they can conquer them. So we all, for the majority of us, really should have our best interests and should have each other back. But because of disinformation and all type of psychological warfare, thanks to COINTELPRO, we are at each other's throats all the time. We hate each other based on falsities, not realizing who we really are. That's the games they play. In early October, Hampton and his girlfriend, Deborah Johnson, now known as Akua Najuri, pregnant with their first child, Fred Hampton Jr., rented a 4.5 room apartment on 2337 West Monroe Street to be closer to BPP headquarters. O'Neill reported to his superiors that much of the Panthers' provocative stockpile of arms was being stored there. The FBI, determined to prevent any enhancement of the BPP leadership's effectiveness, decided to set up an arms raid on Hampton's Chicago apartment. FBI informant William O'Neill provided them with detailed information about Hampton's apartment, including the layout of furniture and the bed in which Hampton and his girlfriend slept. An augmented 14-man team, a 14-man team of the SAO, the Special Prosecutions Unit, was organized for a pre-dawn raid aimed with a warrant for illegal weapons. On the evening of December 3rd, Hampton taught a political education course at a local church, which was attended by most members. Afterwards, as was typical, several Panthers retired to the Monroe Street apartment to spend the night, including Hampton and Deborah Johnson, also known as Akua in the jury, Blair Anderson, Ronald Doc Satchel, Harold Bell, Valina Brewer, Louis Trulock, Brenda Harris, and Mark Clark. Upon arrival, they were met by O'Neill, who had prepared a late dinner, which the group ate around midnight. O'Neill had slipped the powerful barbiturate sleep agent, secobarbital, into a drink that Hampton consumed during the dinner in order to sedate Hampton so he would not awaken during the subsequent raid. O'Neill immediately left. That's his chief bodyguard, FBI agent provocateur. He put something in Fred Hampton's Kool-Aid. You know, I'm just saying Kool-Aid. I don't know what I'm just saying, the reference to Jim Jones, all that stuff. Y'all get it. At 4:45 a.m., it's December 4th. It was a Thursday, I believe. And 14-man heavily armed police team stormed into the apartment. Automatic gunfire converged at the head of the south bedroom where Hampton slept, unable to awaken as a result of the barbiturates the FBI infiltrator had slipped into his drink. He was laying on a mattress in the bedroom with his fiancée, who was 8.5 months pregnant with their child. 2 officers found him wounded in the shoulder, and Black Panther Harold Bell reported that he heard the following exchange: "That's Fred Hampton. Is he dead? Bring him out. He's barely alive. He'll make it." 2 shots were heard, which were later discovered were fired point blank in Hampton's head. According to Johnson, one officer then said, "He's good and dead now." So that's just a synopsis of what happened, right? And this is what I'll say to that. They said it was a black police officer who gave Fred Hampton the kill shot. I think his name was like Davis, last name. I don't know. I think he had a nickname, Glover or something. I don't know. But he was a black police officer allegedly who gave him the kill shot. And you got to think about it. Fred Hampton Jr. was born several weeks later. Think about the trauma that impacted him in that womb. To be a witness in the womb to the assassination of his father, of the man who helped give him life. And think about, you think about Fred Hampton, he's an activist. I mean, he's really his father's legacy, living legacy. Think about that, and then the stuff he has to endure to this day, dealing with the system, being the son and namesake of a famous, or according to them, an infamous freedom fighter. So this is what we're dealing with here. They assassinated this man while he was sleeping. Cold-blooded kill by the state. The state attorney's office was on it. FBI was on it. Chicago Police Department was on it. Mayor Daley, hell, he was the mayor of Chicago. And what's interesting about Chicago, Chicago is known as the city of big shoulders. It's a gangster city. Even before Al Capone came there, Chicago always been a gangster city. Look at the history. It's a gangster town. Mayor Daley, they call him Gangster Daley, right? He basically was a gangster. They were killing folks for power and all that stuff. It was a show that came out some years ago, not that long ago, less than 10 years ago, called Boss. It was called Boss. It was actually a good show. It's about I guess Kelsey Grammer from Cheers fame, from Frasier fame. He was the mayor of Chicago. And even though it's fictionalized, it basically symbolizes the ruthlessness of Chicago politics. It's gangster town. Mayor Daley, he didn't invent the blueprint. You go back to the 30s when you had Anton Cermak, who was the mayor of Chicago. He did that rainbow coalition politics, but he wanted to control not only the overworld, but also the underworld. So Mayor Daley sent a police hit squad to the business office of Frank Nitti, and they shot up Frank Nitti. And I don't know how he survived that. But Anton Cermak was killed along. He was sitting next to the president of the United States, President Franklin Roosevelt. I believe this happened back in March of 1933. He was assassinated in Miami. They said the hit was on Roosevelt, but it probably was on Anton Cermak as payback for what he tried to do to Frank Nitti to take over Chicago underworld. The hitter that killed Anton Cermak was a guy named Giuseppe Zangara from Italy. He was an immigrant from Italy. So they actually put him in an electric chair just days later after Anton Cermak died. I didn't think he had a pill or anything. He just got put in an electric chair. Look that up. But they said that he was trying to aim at Franklin Roosevelt, but hit Anton Cermak instead. But according to Lucky Luciano, that was a hit that was designed for Anton Cermak. Lucky Luciano, the father of modern American organized crime. That Lucky Luciano. He talks about that in his autobiography. But William O'Neill changed his name, got into the Witness Protection Program. Y'all should check out the great docu-series, Eyes on the Prize, that was created by my fellow alum, WashU alum from Missouri, Henry Hampton. The Eyes on the Prize series did a episode on Fred Hampton, and they interviewed William O'Neill. It's got to be back in the 80s. And you look at William O'Neill, it seemed like he had a lot of remorse for what he helped do to Fred Hampton. Because it sounded like in the interview that he thought Fred Hampton really was a decent human being. The more he got to know Fred Hampton, the more he admired him. At first he probably thought he was a thug. Some of the Black Panthers, a lot of the Black Panthers were middle class, college educated folk. Like a lot of these folks came out of, some of these folks came out of SNCC. Like Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture was a prime minister of information at one time. So some of the Panthers had a reputation, but Fred Hampton was really a decent human being. And so he grew to regret that decision to set him up. And then allegedly, 30 years ago, back in January 1990, he ran across the Eisenhower Expressway to commit suicide. That's the story anyway, that he ran across the Eisenhower Expressway, got hit by some cars. This is William O'Neill, the FBI informant, agent provocateur who set up Fred Hampton. He committed suicide allegedly January 1990. You can look all this stuff up and check out that episode on Eyes of the Prize about Fred Hampton. And Mark Clark, we can't forget that he got killed. He was very young as well. And, at that time, the Fred Hampton and Clark families and other survivors were involved in probably the longest civil lawsuit or civil trial in American history at that point. It lasted for 12 years, 13 years, probably 12 years. The family was, the victims and the families were awarded like $1.85 or $1.82 million back in 1982. A guy who represented the family, Fred Hampton's family, named Jeffrey Haas. He's a Jewish guy from Atlanta. He befriended Fred Hampton when he was a law student, I believe, in the University of Chicago. They opened the People's Law Office in Chicago, him and his partner, inspired by Fred Hampton. He represented the family. He wrote a book called The Murder of Fred Hampton or The Assassination of Fred Hampton. Let me find it and prop it up on the screen. And thank y'all for being very patient. I'm trying to get to the beef. But I always try to honor Fred Hampton as much as I can. I know everybody, we're not familiar with that story. When the movie come out, I hope people will try to, not just take the movie as the final say on the amazing legacy of Fred Hampton, but do the research. Do the research, y'all. Find that book I was talking about Fred Hampton. Okay, I think this is the book. I think that's the book. Yeah. I'm trying to get the book. I thought the book was shared. It's The Assassination of Fred Hampton. Y'all can find it on Amazon. And then let me see if I get it. Okay, that's the book, y'all. I think the screen showing it. The Assassins of Fred Hampton, how the FBI and the Chicago police murdered a Black Panther. And also, it's a documentary from that era called The Murder of Fred Hampton that's available online. You can probably find on YouTube. And basically, they were so arrogant in what they did. The Chicago police at the state attorney's office of Illinois, they did not control the crime scene. They allowed the apartment to remain open. They didn't try to control the crime scene. The state attorney held a press conference and on TV, and he claimed it was a shootout between the Panthers and the police. And folks brought that until they went to the apartment. By them not controlling the crime scene and sealing it off, the Panthers allowed the public to go to the crucifixion scene of what happened to Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. And one elder Black woman, I think she probably was from the South, she said it was nothing but a northern lynching, nothing but another lynching, but it was up north. So the people saw what really happened, and we found out it was not a shootout, but rather a shoot in, because the only shot that came from a Black Panther was the one given by Mark Clark in response to getting hit in the chest. I think they shot him in the chest, and as a reaction, he had his gun in his lap, whatever. He let out a round, and then they started shooting up. And think about it, only Mark Clark and Fred Hampton Sr. was killed. And it was like several people in that apartment. Yeah, people got injured, but they weren't murdered. So you know there was a targeted execution because it was other folks in the apartment, but only Fred Hampton Sr. and Mark Clark were the ones killed. The chairman and the defense captain. So never forget those names, Fred Hampton Sr., Mark Clark. Never forget the sacrifices that were made on behalf for our people. Because, people talk about reparations and, indigenous, all this. Look, if you want to make the claim for reparations, you got to know about these type of stories, these abuses committed by the state. Because a lot of stuff came out during the church committee hearings of the 70s. You had a senator from Idaho, Frank Church, who had some morals and ethics about himself. He exposed the deep state abuses, people like the FBI and CIA, those type of entities, how they abuse their powers and abuse the civil and human liberties of American citizens. They use all their resources to undermine and destroy everyday American citizens. Just want to do right, like Fred Hampton Sr. So never forget, look up the church committee from the 70s, right? Frank Church. All this stuff came out. So let's talk about our friend, our brother. I mean, not our brother. I don't know him. Let's talk about Grandmaster Jay and put this in some type of context. Yeah, white supremacists always honor their heroes, man. Anton Cermak got a street name after him. They always honor their people. We the ones forget. Look, Dr. Reddy Short said it best. We love our traitors and hate our heroes. He said heroes. I call them heroes. Fred Hampton ain't getting all the love. Y'all love when Chadwick Boseman passed. He was no disrespect to Chadwick, he was playing a Black Panther. And Fred Hampton Sr. was a real Black Panther. But how many of those folks that saw the movie Black Panther, Black people, know about this amazing legacy of an actual historical figure named Fred Hampton Sr., whose mom was the babysitter for Emmett Till? How many people know about these stories and these connections? So it's very important to talk about this stuff from time to time. And I'm honored with the burden of doing this because I have a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I just don't have the time like I want to. Like with Trump, the Trump thing. Trump came out with their speech about election fraud, right? On December 2nd. December 2nd is the death day of John Brown, the greatest white man America ever produced. Me and Dick Gregory believe that anyway. He was the greatest white man. I think Dick Gregory believed he was the greatest American, but I say he was the greatest white man ever produced by America. Because he had ethics, he had principle, and he was spiritual. This was a white man who gave up his privilege and even sacrificed the lives of his sons to help try to free Black people, to liberate Black people. It was a point in this history where Black folks, man, they I want to almost say deified John Brown. One of the first statues made in his honor in America, the money was raised by black people. And the statue still stands. It's in Quindaro, Kansas, but it's part of Kansas City, Kansas, right? In that area. I went there 4 years ago. I got a video about it. But black people today, if you ask the average black person who John Brown was or what he did, they couldn't tell you. It's like, you know how they do late night shows where they man on the street and they ask people who the president is or who their representative is or senator. They can't tell you. But folks can tell you about the top 40 hits and Cardi B's favorite color and favorite food and stuff like that. But we can't tell you about stuff that really matters that pertains to us understanding ourselves better. So it's a fascinating world we're living in. We're living in an idiocracy. Idiocracy. You know, there was a movie that came out by Mike Judge, creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill, called Idiocracy. And guess who was the president of America? It was Terry Crews. Toxic. No, but anyway. Let's talk about Grandmaster Flash, right? And he was, man, I said Grandmaster Flash. I mean, Grandmaster J. I know y'all ready to correct me. Well, this Grandmaster J, brother Ron. Not Grandmaster. I said, not Jam Master J, but Grandmaster J. See how you get it, all this stuff is interesting. What happened to our brother? Well, let's talk about it. Right here. Grandmaster J, leader of INFAC militia that demonstrated in Louisville, arrested on federal charge. Man, sad. Says right in a couple days after his birthday, no less. You know, a couple days after his birthday, right? Let's talk about it. How about how to our brother, man? You know, and I see some people they cheering for this, but to me it proves that he was no agent. That what this proves to me. It's only like makes him more legitimate. He's a legend. Like I said earlier, I said 100 years ago we had Marcus Garvey and United Negro Improvement Association. 100 years later, we got Grandmaster J, and in fact, history is like interesting, right? And people say, "Are you comparing him to Marcus Garvey? That's blasphemy." Well, it is what it is. I mean, he actually went to jail. Oh, he might be facing 20 years in prison. Think about the white boy, Kyle Rittenhouse, killed 2 people. He may not even go to prison. But Grandmaster J points his gun with the flashlight at the end at some people who say they law enforcement. And I don't think he would try to do anything. I mean, I think it's strange, man. It's weird. That happened on September 4th, and now you're going to arrest him on December 3rd. I mean, why y'all didn't get him then? Which is interesting. But he may be facing 20 years in prison while Kyle Rittenhouse may be walking, who's out on bail right now for killing 2 people. This is fascinating times we're living in, folks. Stay woke. Well, the leader of the Not Effing Around Coalition, a black militia that demonstrated in Louisville during last summer's social unrest, was arrested Thursday on a federal charge. John Johnson, 57, commonly referred to as Grandmaster J, was charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers or employees, according to court documents. Johnson is accused of pointing a rifle at Louisville Metro Police officers as well as federal officers on September 4th, the night before the 2020 Kentucky Derby, according to a probable cause affidavit. The alleged incident took place just after 8:30 p.m. as officers were conducting surveillance over demonstrators at Jefferson Square in downtown Louisville. At that time, in Louisville Metro Police Detective or Department radio transmission went out notifying officers that a group of 6 to 8 heavily armed individuals were parked on Armory Place near a parking garage, according to the court documents. 2 federal officers and 3 LMPD officers then went to the top of the nearby Jefferson County Grand Jury building to watch the group. When they got there and leaned over the roof, 3 of them were blinded by a flashlight, the affidavit claims. Investigators said that flashlight was on the end of a rifle that Johnson was pointing at them. All of the officers identified the suspect as Grandmaster J, according to court documents. All officers advised they were concerned Johnson might intentionally or even accidentally discharge a round at them. The probable cause affidavit states all officers recognized that the distance between themselves and Johnson was well within the effective range of the AR platform style rifle. 2 of the officers were wearing soft body armor, but were aware that soft body armor would not stop a rifle round, the affidavit states. Jessie Holliday, a spokeswoman for the LMPD, met with Johnson and another member of the group about 30 seconds after the incident and later identified Johnson from surveillance video, according to the documents. Johnson was booked into the Oldham County Detention Center just before 1 p.m. Thursday, officials said. If Johnson is convicted of his charges, he faces a maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison, according to a news release from the United States Attorney Russell Coleman's office. Here in Kentucky, we revere our First and Second Amendment freedoms, not foolishness which puts police and protesters at grave risk, Coleman said in the news release. Roughly 200 members of the INFACT were in Louisville on Derby Day during protests over the death of Breonna Taylor, a black woman who was shot and killed by white police officers during a March 13th raid on her apartment. Fascinating, right? Timing is everything. If he is guilty of what they said he is, how come they didn't arrest him 30 seconds after the incident? If they spoke to him 30 seconds after the incident, how come they didn't arrest him? And did the Louisville or LMPD people identify themselves as being police officers? This man was in a hornet's nest. I'm not justifying anything, but I can understand the anxiety of not knowing, because you got these white nationalist groups and white supremacist groups, race soldiers everywhere. You even got race soldiers in law enforcement. So you don't know who's who. So they got on the roof, but did they properly identify themselves? They didn't say that he was shooting bullets at them. He just shone a flashlight. I had police officers, when I got pulled over, to shine flashlights at me and blind me for a moment. You know, what they got to do? Was he really a threat? As many black folks they killed, you know, without guns, the police do. Was he really a threat? In Louisville, I mean, you just got that activist, that brother named Travis got killed. They said it was a carjacking. Who knows? It's Louisville. I already told you about Louisville. They was going to kill Dr. King in Louisville. It was a conspiracy that was going to originate out of the Louisville Police Department. It was a white police officer that whistleblowed on the conspiracy to kill King in Louisville. We talked about Alberta Odell Jones. You know, she was like the first black woman, or one of the first black women to pass the state bar to practice law. She was the first black and woman prosecutor in Jefferson County. She was over the domestic violence unit. She was sending white boys to prison for domestic violence. And she was killed violently and thrown in a river, right? I mean, she drowned, but they beat her brutally and threw her in the river. And that case is unsolved. That murder is unsolved, right? So this is Louisville. This is America. This is not just Louisville. What I'm saying is, they railroading the brother. This is similar to what they did with the mail fraud thing with Marcus Garvey. That was a federal charge, the mail fraud. That's how they got Marcus Garvey. You know, and black folks, every black person didn't love Marcus Garvey. You know, Marcus Garvey, he was pen pals. His jagner was Booker T. Washington. One of his things, he wanted to come to America and work with Booker T. Washington, possibly in Tuskegee, or he wanted to start an organization similar to Tuskegee in Jamaica. But Booker T. Washington died in 1915 under questionable circumstances. November 14th, 1915. Marcus Garvey came over in 1916. It was foundational black Americans, if y'all call them. Foundational black Americans helped Marcus Garvey rise to prominence. It was A. Philip Randolph, from my understanding, labor union icon, Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, or Pullman Porters, or whatever. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. He gave Marcus Garvey his first opportunity to do a public speech in America, right? He wanted to work with Du Bois and them, and they shunned him. And so, it was beef between Du Bois and Garvey. I mean, yeah, like Gucci Man and Jeezy or something, or Pac and Biggie, whatever. You're right. It was they beef. We always beefing, right? So they set him up. The FBI set up Marcus Garvey. The first FBI agent that was black hired in the history of the FBI was hired to neutralize Marcus Garvey, a guy named James Wormley Jones. Agent 800. Look him up. Google Agent 800. James Wormley Jones, former DC detective and World War I veteran. He got into Marcus Garvey's inner circle. So COINTELPRO was going on way before the 60s and 50s. COINTELPRO started with Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey is the blueprint for the FBI's success. Just like they made a whole law, the Mann Act, to go after Jack Johnson for sleeping with white women all around the country. The FBI was made by taking down Marcus Garvey, the real black messiah, not the public enemies of the 30s. It was not made by taking down John Dillinger and Pretty Boy Floyd, all them people. It was made by taking down Marcus Garvey. He was the blood sacrifice for the white supremacists to create their organization known as the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So, and speaking of Marcus Garvey, let's talk about, they sent him to prison back in February 8th, 1925. And I just want to read something from Marcus Garvey. Just, like I said, we're going to put this in the proper historical context. I know this I'm long-winded. I'm all over the place. But take what you want, or don't take nothing at all. But I just want to put this out because it's been on my mind because I don't see a lot of people doing this. The history right here. You got a smartphone. Hell, use it. Let me see. I'm trying to get used to the screen. I promise I will get better at this technology stuff. Doing these PowerPoints, I don't know what they are. Let me find it. It's so much information I'm trying to get out here, man. Oh my God. It's still been on my mind. The ancestors be talking to me and people think I be joking about that. These folks be in my ear. They be in my ear, man. I want to show this mugshot. That's Marcus Garvey. I had no idea that Marcus Garvey was so short. On here it says he's like 5'4" and weigh about 176 pounds. He had the Napoleon complex. It makes sense now. I mean, he was just 5'4". That's what makes sense. I mean, the man was very ambitious. And he was our greatest mass leader we ever produced. Say what you want about Marcus Garvey. You might not like his politics or ideology. This man had millions of black people following him throughout the diaspora. Millions. He was on the radio all the time. There was no social media. But he understood the power to control your narrative. He had the Negro world. Now, every black leader we produced knew the value of having their own media platform. Every single one, the greatest ones, they created their own media platforms. They created their own media platforms. The greatest among us, you go back to Frederick Douglass, North Star, Freedom Journal. You think about our brother, The Appeal, David Walker, from Wilmington, of all places. Think about Ida B. Wells, the free speech. Think about William Monroe Trotter up in Boston, The Guardian. You think about all these things. Malcolm X started Muhammad Speaks. Then even minister right now, Farrakhan with the final call. Even Al Sharpton, I ain't say he's our great black leader, but even he know that you gotta have radio and TV presence in order to control that narrative. So I'm gonna read a letter or some of the letters from Marcus Garvey from prison addressing black people, and then we'll go from there. Because Grandmaster Jay, y'all should check out his YouTube channel. Because whatever you may think about him as far as being a poser or agent, he put out some very good information about who we are as a people. And they don't want you to really know who you are as a people in this system. How can they take advantage of you if you knew who you really were? They couldn't. But if they did take advantage of you, it'd be because you actually had a choice in the matter. Not because you didn't know any better, because you knew better, you allowed it to happen anyway. See, to have knowledge is to have responsibility and accountability, real knowledge. It's a burden. Real knowledge is a burden and a blessing. Because you got to figure out, what did I do with it, and should I share it? Do I want to share this burden? Do I want to share this blessing? But we all got purpose here. And that's my whole point. We all have a purpose. Let me read this letter that Marcus Garvey wrote to his supporters. His letter from the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Now, they sent Al Capone down there before they sent him to Alcatraz. He was down in Atlanta in the Federal Penitentiary before they sent him to Alcatraz. But that's not a story about Al Capone today. We're talking about Marcus Garvey, Grandmaster J, and the Black Messiah Code. This is Marcus Garvey letter from Atlanta prison. Fellow men of the Negro race, greetings. I am delighted to inform you that your humble servant is as happy in suffering for you and our cause as is possible under the circumstances of being viciously outraged by a group of plotters who have connived to do their worst to humiliate you through me and fight for real emancipation and African redemption. I do not want at this time to write anything that will make it difficult for you to meet the opposition of your enemy without my assistance. Suffice to say that the history of the outrage shall form a splendid chapter in the history of Africa redeemed, when black men will no longer be under the heels of others, but have a civilization and culture of their own. The whole affair is a disgrace, and the whole black world knows it. We shall not forget. Our day may be 50, 100, or 200 years ahead. Let us watch, work, and pray, for the civilization of injustice is bound to crumble and bring destruction down upon the heads of the unjust. My work is just begun, and when the history of my suffering is complete, then the future generations of the Negro will have in their hands the guide by which they shall know the sins of the 20th century. I know you too, believe in time, and we shall wait patiently for 200 years, if need be, to face our enemies through our prosperity. All I have given you. I have sacrificed my home and my loving wife for you. I entrust her to your charge to protect and defend her in my absence. She is the bravest little woman I know. She has suffered and sacrificed with me for you. Therefore, please do not desert her at this dismal hour, when she stands alone. I left her penniless and helpless to face the world, because I gave you all, but her courage is great, and I know she will hold up for you and me. After my enemies are satisfied, in life or death, I shall come back to you to serve even as I have served before. In life, I shall be the same. In death, I shall be a terror to the foes of Negro liberty. If death has power, then count on me in death to be the real Marcus Garvey I would like to be. If I may come in an earthquake, or a cyclone, or a plague, or a pestilence, or as God would have me, then be assured that I will never desert you and make your enemies triumph over you. I will not go to hell a million times for you. Would I not go to hell a million times for you? Would I not, like Macbeth's ghost, walk the earth forever for you? Would I not lose the whole world and eternity for you? Would I not cry forever before the footstool of the Lord omnipotent for you? Would I not die a million deaths for you? Then why be sad? Cheer up and be assured that if it takes a million years, the sins of our enemies shall visit the millionth generation of those that hinder and oppress us. If I die in Atlanta, my work shall then only begin, but I shall live in the physical or spiritual to see the day of Africa's glory. When I am dead, wrap the mantle of the red, black, and green around me. For in the new life, I shall rise with God's grace and blessing to lead the millions up the heights of triumph with the colors that you well know. Look for me in the whirlwind or the storm. Look for me all around you, for with God's grace, I shall come and bring with me countless millions of black slaves who have died in America and the West Indies, and the millions in Africa to aid you in the fight for liberty, freedom, and life. The civilization of today has gone drunk and crazy with its power, and by such it seeks through injustice, fraud, and lies to crush the unfortunate. But if I am apparently crushed by the system of influence and misdirected power, my cause shall rise again to plague the conscience of the corrupt. For this again I am satisfied, and for you I repeat, I am glad to suffer and even die. Again I say, cheer up, for better days are ahead. I shall write the history that will inspire the millions that are coming and lead the posterity of our enemies to reckon with the host for the deeds of their fathers. With God's dearest blessings, I leave you for a while. So this is from his letter from February 10th, 1925. Man, and I think about, if you listen to Grandmaster Jay and some of his podcasts, especially the Facts Over Feelings series, the last one he did before they arrested him, he got that defiant spirit of Garvey. That's why I say he reminds me of Garvey, of this time. And people can say what they want. Garvey was not liked by a lot of so-called black elites of the time. Even though they helped him at the beginning, they sold him out. See, you got to understand, these white people can't get us unless we allow them into our circles. The only way they could get Marcus Garvey by having black folks that were compliant and was going along with it. He's Uncle Stevens. It's the only way they could get Marcus Garvey. Even later on, Du Bois had regrets about how he did Garvey. Later on, Du Bois was a Pan-Africanist, but he had regrets later on. He was at I think in China, in his one of his birthdays in his 90s. He talked about how he did all this stuff for his country, but they just know him as just another nigga. How he was treated. He talked about how in 1956 he was not going to vote Democrat or Republican. He said both parties basically sold us out. Read that letter he wrote about, or that article about not voting in the 1956 presidential election. So we are very complex people. Marcus Garvey died in 1940. Legend has it that he read his obituary and he had a stroke or a heart attack or something like that. I don't know. But let's remember Marcus Garvey in a time like this, that the only way they could take him down is with our consent. You had black folks helping the government take down Marcus Garvey. It's like you had black folks helping the government take down Fred Hampton and Malcolm X and so many of our leaders, our heroes and sheroes. But yeah, he's in that narrative now. Whatever you think about Grandmaster Jay, he's part of that narrative now. He's up there. He's a political prisoner, for better or for worse. And like I said, I'm not a follower of NFAC or Grandmaster Jay. I just want to tell it how it is from a different perspective. Yeah, Garvey had many chapters in the South. His strongest stronghold was Louisiana, of all places. Louisiana was the strongest stronghold for Garvey in America. One of his former associates, this guy named Reverend James Eason. It's hard to find information on Reverend James Eason. Allegedly, he was going to flip state's evidence against Garvey, and he was assassinated in a place called the Black House in New Orleans. And this guy, it was kind of like if Marcus Garvey was Elijah Muhammad, then this guy, Reverend James Eason, would have been Malcolm X. He was very charismatic. He was a great speaker, great orator, would travel the country and talk. And so I think he was making a deal with the feds, and they killed him. They neutralized him. Some of Garvey's alleged supporters. I'm not saying he issued the hit, but you have people that were very zealous followers of Garvey, like any movement. It's interesting. Garvey was married to two. He had two wives, right? And both their names were Amy. He married two black women named Amy, which is interesting. And also one of his wives, I think it was the first wife, she stopped the assassination attempt against Garvey herself. So Garvey was around some beautiful, strong black women. I had to use the word strong, like Bob Dick Gregory said. We call our women strong and our cars beautiful. But he had some soldiers with him, men and women, that believed in what he was doing. I believe Garvey was sincere, but he was not a great businessman. He trusted the wrong people. Because I don't think it was Garvey that really it was the government that sabotaged the Black Star Line. I mean, I heard they put sugar in the fuel tank. He brought stuff that wasn't really worthy, that wasn't seaworthy. He brought vessels that weren't seaworthy. And he had people in his circle that were greedy. Because like he said, he was broke when he went to prison. And I believe that. I believe his heart was in the right place, but he just was not a capitalist like that. But he had a lot of folks believing what he was doing. And like Grandmaster Jay, Grandmaster Jay talked about separation, right? He talking about starting a new black nation or a new nation for melanated people. That's what Garvey talked about. He talked about going back to Africa and starting a great civilization. And what's interesting about Garvey, he never stepped one foot in Africa. Garvey never been to Africa, but he always talking about the motherland. You had like millions of black folks in UNIA. But yeah, it's something to research. But this is like what I'm doing. I'm giving y'all starters to talk about, right? Because like to put this Grandmaster Jay thing in some perspective. Cause I heard about the agent rumors. It's unfortunate. People call me an agent, and yeah, I'm going to work scrubbing toilets and stuff. So I don't know. Trying to pick which bills I'm gonna pay for the month, like everybody else. But brother Ron, an agent. That's hilarious. But moving on. There's so much to cover. I gotta do another show. I'm gonna do another show for y'all. I'm doing back to back like Drake, back to back like Drake. Drake Daddy from Memphis, you right? So we got another great show planned for y'all after this one. I'll probably do a part 2 to this one, but I can't cover all the things I want to cover. But we talked about Grandmaster Jay. Also, let's talk about. Let me see. Thank y'all for being patient. And there's so much stuff to talk about. Yeah, they call me an agent. People always call you an agent. I voted for Trump, and I'm honest about it. I voted for him twice, but not because I'm for Trump. I'm for black people. If y'all looked at the last 2 years of Malcolm X's life, listen to his speech, Message to the Grassroots, and also listen to Prospects for Freedom. Like, even it boggled his mind that almost 100% of black folks voted for the Democratic ticket in 1964. You voted for Lyndon Johnson and Hubert Humphrey. And my thing is, we the only group of people that vote like that and don't get no benefits. What's the point of being that loyal to somebody or entity that's not loyal to you at all? They always undermine you. They never give you what they promise they'll give you or what you think they should give you. That's political suicide. So with Trump, I mean, it would have been an easier route, or it still can be an easier route to reparations, because you best believe that Joe Biden is not the president-elect officially. I'm not going to have CNN or Reuters or Associated Press or anybody tell me that he's the president right now. If y'all voted for vaccinations and lockdowns, we deserve to get what we get. This is what y'all voted for. Because really, Trump was trying to circumvent that stuff. And I heard that he just got one of his people appointed to the Federal Reserve Board. Trump is really the hero in this equation. I'm not telling you gotta love Trump. Even when people talk about, I heard people say, you got to stop this sensationalism and emotionalism. Like people say, well, Trump's going to execute 4 or 5 black men in December and January. He didn't put them guys on death row. That came before he got to be president, let alone a politician. All that stuff happened before his time. It may happen on his time that they get executed. But here's the thing. Y'all love Bill Clinton so much, and y'all love the Democrats. Wasn't it Bill Clinton that killed a retarded black man in Arkansas to become president of the United States? Ricky Ray Rector? Look him up. Rector. Last name Rector. Ricky Ray. He put him to death so he could be president. He blood sacrificed a retarded black man, or we can't say that word, mentally challenged, mentally disabled black man, right? Who had a childhood understanding. He allowed him to be executed so he could be president. That's the first black president. I love Jackson cookies. I love them. The best cookies. Lemon cookies, the best ones made in the history of mankind. Jackson lemon cookies. Oh, Mr. Glenn, he loved Jackson cookies. Oh, Lord, he just like a Negro. Oh, Lord, God bless Mr. Glenn. Yeah, your boy, Mr. Saxophone. He put a mentally disabled black man to death so he could be president. Now, the guy did kill a police officer. The family, they knew the police officer. He knew the family, and he just killed him. I mean, the guy is mentally disabled, right? I think even Jesse Jackson tried to save this dude's life, right? Y'all like to hate on Jesse. Jesse tried to intervene and said, Bill, don't do this to this man. Bill Clinton did it anyway, so he could be president. And we get what we deserve. So all y'all talking about get rid of Trump at all costs and bring in a new world order. You get a new world order. They have not give us a second stimulus check, y'all. Other countries are compensating and taking care of their civilians and all this stuff, citizens. But our country don't even think we supposed to be taken care of. It's like we in the French Revolution. We can't even afford to eat the cake. We can't afford the cake. You said let us eat cake, but we can't even afford to get the cake. You got 17 million people facing evictions, and y'all talk about Trump. Oh, Trump is he did that discrimination, the housing discrimination. Ironic, the slumlord is trying to save people homes. It was the slumlord who put a moratorium on evicting people. Yeah, that guy, racial discrimination housing guy. That life is funny like that. But what I'm saying is, if you're gonna be mad at somebody, be mad for the right reasons. Understand the issues, research the history. With that said, Grandmaster Jay is now part of that freedom fighting tradition. He is an official political prisoner. Whether you like him or not, whatever you think about his policies or politics or ideology, he's a political prisoner. And let's talk about what agents really look like. Let's talk about, I don't think everybody giving donations. I mean, shout out. Judy Childs, thank you, sister. We love you madly. Thank you so much for the love and support. And B.O.B. Rewards Club, Bob Rewards Club. I don't believe it. Weak charges fake. Yeah, and look, Cosby should not be sitting in prison right now. There should never been a trial for Cosby. This man got money and resources. This man paid his accuser almost $5 million. He got an email. I remember reading an article where there was an email he got from the DA office at the time saying they would not pursue charges against him if he is willing to testify or give his testimony from his point of view, which he did. He trusted the system, and the system screwed him over once again. You had a judge that was anti-Cosby. His wife was anti-Cosby. He shouldn't even be the presiding judge over that case. They had no case. They talking about bad acts. If these bad acts were not crimes officially recognized by the court, it just hearsay, innuendo, and rumors. This man went to jail on some rumors with no evidence. They railroaded Bill Cosby. Whatever you think about him personally or whatever, I don't care about all that. To me, it's not about that. It's about, even if you're a criminal or degenerate, you still got rights that should be respected. Laws are meant not to only protect the innocent, but also the guilty. Due process. So I'm hoping that he gets the stuff overturned. It's like them justices got some sense. You could never tell with white people. But it's not about the color of skin. To me, it's about the color of character. So, speaking of that, let's talk about Dr. King. And thank y'all for the patience. So much to dive into. I hope this could be a service. If y'all can use this, use it. I can find Dr. King. We know Dr. King, like I said, December 1st marked the 65th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycott, right? And Dr. King was 26 years young. They forced him into the movement, and he became the president of the Montgomery Improvement Association. Well, I just talked about Marcus Garvey, United Negro Improvement Association. He was the president of the Montgomery Improvement Association. He had a sister, Rosa Parks, who was a committed Garveyite. She came from a pro-Garveyite household. So she grew up with the RBG on her mind. She's an RBG mentally, in shape sister. So my understanding, she actually was not in the whites only section when she refused to remove from her seat. She was in the black section of the bus. But she refused to get up for the white man. And rightfully so, she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. She's 42 years old. She's a seamstress. And she was actually in the black section of the bus. But they wanted, see what white folks do, like anything. When you win and they change the rules in the middle of the game. So white folks love to play musical chairs with our rights and with our self-determination, things of that nature. So this is what we're dealing with. So let me find. Like I said, there's a lot to dig into here. Dr. King. Okay. That's from Montgomery bus boycott. Dr. King got arrested. Like I said, he started the Montgomery bus boycott. He was just 26 years young, new kid on the block, but they put him in a position of leadership to lead. No, I didn't share. Let me share. Find that. All right, 2020 like a whole year in Mercury retrograde. If a whole year was in Mercury retrograde, it would be 2020. Find that. Jeez, Louise. Yeah. But like it's a time for us to put down the BS and pick up some knowledge. It's time for us to step our game up as a people to really study what's going on. What Marvin Gaye said what's going on. It is time for us to really study. But you know, like speaking of agents, I showed the picture of Dr. King. But here's the thing: I want to play a clip from Reverend Albert Simpson. He was a part of the SCLC for Dr. King. He was like only one of three people to ever get Dr. King blessed him as a preacher. We call that when you get he ordained him. Like Dr. King ordained this brother, Albert Simpson. He went to Shaw University. I believe he was a part of SNCC at that time. Because I think SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, was founded at Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina, I believe, wherever Shaw University is in North Carolina. So I can't, y'all just correct me or whatever and look it up, okay? But he was this housing director. And I want to play something I recorded at the National Civil Rights Museum, the crucifixion site of Dr. King from 5 years ago. Reverend Albert Simpson talks about how King told his top lieutenants at the SCLC that he would be assassinated by the government. I'm going to play that clip from the We All Be TV archives. And we'll go from there. You find it. Man, it's like a lot of stuff. Okay. Man, wait a minute. It's not even sharing my stuff. Let me share it. Okay, now it's sharing. I think it should be able to play. Everybody call you. You trying to show some stuff. I'm trying to find. Let me be patient, y'all. I know I'm not the most savvy person. I'm trying to find that. Is it? Okay. Y'all can hear it, right? I can't hear the audio. Wait a minute. Yo, hold up. Y'all can't hear. Okay, here. Well, let me. Oh, y'all can't hear the audio. Let me do something. People say they can't hear the audio. gonna try to find the audio. If I can't play it, I can't play it. Oh man, this stuff's crazy. See, I see I couldn't hear the audio. You hear me, but not the. Let me see if I can try to play it again. That's interesting. I think it's very important to hear from him. This is one of Dr. King's most trusted lieutenants, Reverend Albert Simpson. He was the housing. Okay. Okay. I think we got it, Frick. I'm learning as I go. We back it up. Hope y'all can hear the audio. Oh, jeez.
August of 1966, he calls all of us together from all over the country as one of the largest staff meetings in the history of SCLC. And in the room, he makes the announcement that a black FBI agent out of California that he met with told him that the United States government was going to assassinate him. So he knew in August of 1966 that the United States government was going to assassinate him. He turned to Ralph Abernathy and said to Ralph, "You've been with me for 15 years. Every time my house got bombed, they bombed yours. They bombed your home. Every time we went to jail, you were with me." He said, "And I want you to take over this organization and be the president of the organization." And the gentleman next to me is Cirillo Maxwell from Panama. He said, "Cirillo, I want you to be the treasurer if anything happens to me." And Cirillo was on the $1 million round table for the New York Life Insurance Company. And he said, "You're a man of integrity. I know you're from Panama, but you're in the struggle with us. And I want you to be the treasurer." That was August of 1966. 1968, Martin developed the Poor People's Campaign. That's why you see George Wiley down the end, Johnny Tillman from California, where they created the National Welfare Rights Organization. And those sisters came to Dr. King and said, "We want you to make on your program, we want to be built in to the Poor People's Campaign." Dr. King said, "No problem." Well, that's August of 68. I'm with Dr. King in Newark, New Jersey.
Well, I'm gonna stop that. Y'all got the idea. Let me just close the screen out. Y'all have the idea, but he basically said that Dr. King told them back in August of 1966 that he was told by a black FBI agent from California in January of 1966 that the government was going to assassinate him. And Dr. King and his people thought he was going to get killed during the Poor People's Campaign, but they brought him to Memphis. They lured him back to Memphis to eliminate him. Because they discredit, or they wanted to discredit Dr. King. The last march he led was in Memphis. It led to violence because of agent provocateurs. And then you had a situation the Thursday before he got killed. When he got killed on Thursday, April the 4th, the previous Thursday, you had the killing of Larry Payne, this 16-year-old teenager in the projects by the police. And the police officer who killed Larry Payne never faced justice. He just died recently. See, white folks hide their people. They reward their race soldiers. I think he died in a nursing home in this area in Memphis. If I'm not mistaken, but a lot of folks thought he was dead for years. That's what they do. They thought he was dead for years. But I interviewed Larry Payne's mother and his brother 10 years ago. And the trauma you can hear in their voices, just the trauma of losing her son, his brother like that. The police intimidating them, where they had to leave Memphis. They were getting threatened by police and everything. Could get no peace of mind. Police even threatened the mom when she tried to, come to the aid of her son. I think she said they put a gun to her belly. But I recorded her testimony on We All BTV. Let's look up Larry Payne. You'll find all that. Where I interviewed the mom and the brother. And guess where they end up moving to? They moved to Flint, Michigan, of all places. You know what's going on in Flint right now. So they left one hell for another hell. Black folks can't win. We always getting traumatized. So I say all this to say, you had a couple things going on, right? Thank you, Aganita MOOR, for your donation. I appreciate it. Just trying to read. But we got a couple things going on here. The reason why I bring up Dr. King with this Grandmaster J thing, because y'all gonna understand. Y'all call everybody an agent you don't agree with. A lot of times, we can all agree to disagree and still be agreeable. My thing is, I'm going to stand in the gap for this brother. I want to just get this out there because it's been on my mind. But you actually have real agents. Like we talked about William O'Neill. They got that movie Judas and the Black Messiah coming out. But you can find out this from his own mouth about how he betrayed the movement, how he sold out Fred Hampton. He had buyer's remorse, and he ended up killing himself, allegedly, right? So you had a situation in Memphis where he had this guy named A.L.L. McCullough. Now, we know about Ernest Withers, right? We know about the civil rights photographer, Ernest Withers, right? It came out 10 years ago that he was an FBI agent, right? The famous civil rights photographer who took the photos at the Emmett Till trial, who took all these I'm a Man photos and all that stuff. That Ernest Withers. I actually met Ernest Withers back in 2004 in his studio on Beale Street, which is now his museum. But it was his studio. And he was cool. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I had no pride. I didn't know what he was doing with the FBI. I didn't know all that. This is 2004. So he took his time to talk to me. And I said, man, do you know Gordon Parks? And he looked at me like, do I know Gordon Parks, blood, young man? He pulled out his wallet. He put out a photo with him and Gordon Parks and Russell Simmons at this place in New York. I guess it's a celebration for, I don't want to say Gordon Parks' birthday or something. I don't know. But I said, okay, cool, man. That's what's up. But he took his time with me. Well, people don't understand about Ernest Withers. He was like one of the first black police officers in Memphis, in modern Memphis history. He became a police officer, I believe, in the late 40s. So, back in those times, if you was a black police officer, you couldn't arrest white people. So you was a police officer, you could see white folks doing horrible things, but you could not even arrest them for doing things that broke the law. So you see how weird our people have headed in this system, how strange it is, how we been programmed and processed to act and respond and behave in a certain way. But and as they said, maybe he never stopped being police. Dick Gregory called him a Judas. He thought that Ernest Withers was a Judas. You can find that online, his interviews and stuff. We thought about Ernest Withers. I know Reverend C.T. Vivian. I talked to both of them, and Reverend C.T. Vivian said, he didn't think he did that much damage. He did more good by publicizing the movement through his photographs, through his photography. And what really pissed off Reverend C.T. Vivian was a guy named James A. Harrison, who was on the SCLC payroll. He was an FBI informant. This guy helped control the finances of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And when I talked to Reverend C.T. Vivian about Ernest Withers, and then he brought the other guy, you could hear the anger in his voice. Like, I dare this SOB betray our trust. He was on our payroll. He got, in benefits and stuff off of us to undermine the movement. I believe that James Harrison, from my understanding, met with the FBI the same day Dr. King got killed. So get the book, The Plot to Kill King by Dr. William Pepper. He talks about a lot of this, about these informants and stuff like that. So James A. Harrison, who was a comptroller who could help control the finances for the SCLC, and Ernest Withers. These folks were, now we know, FBI informants. But with James Harrison, it was well known by the early 80s that he was an FBI informant that worked for SCLC. See, I probably never heard of his name, but look him up. Take a look. It's all online. But this is what I want to talk about. This guy named A.L.L. McCullough. A.L.L. McCullough, if you know that famous picture where they point in somewhere, I don't know if it's at the building, And you got this dude kneeling on Dr. King, got a towel to Dr. King's face. Because they blew out Dr. King's jaw. They messed him up. If Dr. King survived that, he would not have been able to talk, would have been paralyzed, he would have been in a wheelchair, he'd been a cripple. So, like, Dick said something once. He said it was better that Dr. King died instead of lived. Because think about if George Wallace died, he would have been like a martyr. He would have had streets and schools, towns, airports named after him. But George Wallace survived that assassination attempt in a wheelchair. He was a cripple in a wheelchair. Even though he still was a successful politician, but it doesn't have the same effect as being killed for the cause. You understand what I'm saying? Dr. King died at 39, but there was a guy kneeling over him named A.L.L. McCullough. Now, come to find out, people thought he was a Memphis invader. Memphis invaders were like our version of the Black Panther Party here in Memphis. And so he infiltrated the Memphis invaders. Kind of the movie The Klansman that Spike Lee did. He did a reverse Klansman, I guess. Because he just was 2 months out of the police academy. And he infiltrated the Memphis invaders. He was undercover Memphis police intelligence. Also, he was military intelligence. And A.L.L. McCullough, guess what, boys and girls, scholars and laymen, became the first Black commissioned CIA officer in history. I talked about James Womack Jones and Agent 800 with Marcus Garvey. Here's this guy, A.L.L. McCullough, a young guy, did this. He's the guy kneeling over King with the towel to his face while King is laying out on the balcony in front of room 306. Think about Malcolm X's assassination. You had Gene Roberts, his chief bodyguard, NYPD undercover, Bossy program, trying to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Malcolm got holes in his chest, man. How the hell you give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? Same guy who set up Afeni Shakur, Tupac Mom, and the Panther 21. They always have somebody on the scene to make sure the target is dead. What they say? They said friendlies don't wear no tie. Targets wore tie, right? Dr. King had a tie on. Jesse Jackson had a turtleneck on. And y'all, I don't even go. Look, Jesse was 26 when Dr. King got killed. Jesse was in the patio area, in the courtyard area, right? He ran up the stairs and put all that blood on his shirt. He was allowed to fly back home to Chicago and was on the morning news on Good Morning America, whatever, the next day with the blood on his shirt. Jesse was not on the balcony. Then you have, I'm not saying here or there, but I'm just saying somebody should ask Jesse about that. And Jesse has done a lot of good for Black people. Good well, Jesse didn't come up with the term African American. They're white folks. They use Jesse as a Trojan horse for that term. He didn't, like what Dick Gregory said. They don't, when they making policy, they don't have no Black person in the room when they setting policy. That's why King was a danger, because he was getting in a place to affect public policy. He was outspoken about the war in Vietnam. April the 4th, 1967, came out against the Vietnam War in Riverside Church of New York. April 4th, 1968, he was dead at the Lorraine Motel. And Dr. King would normally stay at the Holiday Inn Rivermont. He would not stay at the Lorraine Motel. Lorraine Hotel back in the 80s before it became the Civil Rights Museum. So on the track, Dr. King was race shamed by the media, by the fake news, to stay at the hotel. He would normally stay at the Holiday Inn. Holiday Inn was it was created and founded in Memphis. I'm telling you, Memphis don't get enough play. Memphis was the headquarters and the founding of Holiday Inn back in the day. So Dr. King used to stay at the Holiday Inn, but you know what's crazy? You got archival footage from the news that were telling folks not only where he stayed, but what room he was staying in. His room was on the bottom floor in a secluded area, and somebody from his inner circle moved that room to the top floor. Now you had the Memphis invaders at the hotel or motel, whatever. They were armed. That's our version of the Black Panthers. I know several of the Memphis invaders, Dr. Kobe Smith, brother Sweet Willie Wine, and all that stuff. I know these guys, but they were told to leave. They had rooms at the Lorraine, but they were told to leave. And I believe they were saying Jesse Jackson told the people to kick them out. Allegedly, I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't even born. Hell, so I don't know. But I'm just going by what I read and what I talked to. So they moved his room. He'll normally stay at the Holiday Inn. They moved his room from a secluded area to the top to an exposed area. Dr. King would normally have armed black security for the Memphis Police Department protecting him. When he come to Memphis, he had an armed police security detail, all black. The last couple of times he came to Memphis, he had no such protection. I talked to the man who would normally organize that protection for him, but he was never told to do so. So he had no type of protection. Dr. King felt the safest when he had armed black men around him. When he helped complete the March Against Fear, my time's getting short. When he helped complete the March Against Fear, right, he had the Diggers for Defense from Bogalusa, Louisiana, come up to help protect them. When he used to go to Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, like Charles Evans told me, may he rest in peace. He said Dr. King used to run to his home in Jackson. And he said, well, Charles, I feel so safe and comfortable because you got all the guns and goons. That's what Charles Evans told me at his radio station in Jackson about Dr. King. So, remember, Dr. King was almost killed by a black woman up in Harlem. She stabbed him in his chest, almost bled out from his heart. Had he sneezed, that famous thing, talk about had he sneezed and all this stuff. So, and he had no protection. Same thing with Malcolm X. Malcolm X would normally do his rallies at the Audubon. He had about three dozen police officers around the Audubon. That day he got killed, there was no police officers around when he was walking around the Audubon. They came afterwards. Same thing with Dr. King. So I just want y'all to understand it. Guns and goons, right? Because Charles Evans said he believed in the 3 G's: God, guns, and goons. That's what Charles Evans. That's why Charles Evans almost made it to 100 years old. They killed his brother Mecca at 37, and Mecca had guns in the car, from my understanding, but he couldn't reach him. So I want to play Morrell McCullum. I actually called him 5 years ago, family. I found his number in the white pages online. Morrell McCullum, the guy who's kneeling over Dr. King as he's bleeding out. The guy who was undercover Memphis police, military intelligence, became the first black commissioned officer in CIA history. I'm going to play that clip. I talked to him for less than maybe 2 minutes, but it was interesting. And I'm going to tie it all up. And I may have to do a part 2. There's so much stuff I didn't talk about. But I got another show I got to do. But thank y'all for being patient with me. I'm learning all this technology as I go along, like crash course. But I hope I ain't doing too bad. I hope I can keep y'all attention. I hope y'all can use some of the stuff that I'm saying as good talking points. Let me find.
This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News Free Dixie for the 21st century.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. McCullough.
Yes,
How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. My name is Ron Hurd. I was calling. Are you, Mr. McCullough? Are you from Memphis, Tennessee?
Yes.
And I was calling because I'm doing some research on Dr. King. Are you the same McCullough that was in Memphis the day that Dr. King got killed?
Yeah.
I just want to. Are you available to ask questions?
No. I don't do interviews.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But you are the same McCullough. You was there the day he got killed.
Oh sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but were you CIA at the time?
I don't answer questions. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you.
So that was Morrell McCullum. He was short and to the point. I actually found this number. I mean, I came back from the 50th anniversary of Selma. I went down there the last moment to Montgomery to cover that, and so I came back home, and I guess it was Monday. Hold up, let me close this out. I came home. I said, let me find this Morel McCullough fellow, because that same weekend, the lady who stabbed Dr. King in Harlem, she died. She passed away. She was about 95 years old, I believe. Izola Ware Curry, I believe that's her name, or something like that. Y'all can look that up. But she died that weekend. Something told me to call Morel McCullough, and he was short and to the point. But the reason why I bring him up is because his daughter is now speaking about her father's legacy. He has his daughter. Pull her screen up. Yeah, I hear he visits Memphis from time to time too. Cause I know some of the invaders, they actually talk with him still. But he was the first black commissioned CIA officer in history. Guy from Memphis, born in Mississippi. Morel McCullough. I'll pull up something. I want to show his daughter's website. This is Lita McCullough Selesky. That's his daughter. It's like an interesting sister. She's a writer, an essayist. She's coming out with the book about her father's CIA or dark history called The Kneeling. I think it's called The Kneeling. It's a process of being edited. And I'm going to try to reach out to her and have her on the show because she's very forthcoming. She's a lawyer and she's married, housewife, I guess, right now, but lawyer, essayist. She writes for Oprah magazine. And let me see what else she writes. Who else she writes for? Man, she writes for the Griot, the Atlantic, Oprah, New York Times. I remember I came across her when I saw this Washington Post article right here about 2 years ago around the MLK 50 observation. This came out on April 4th, 2018. In the article, she talks about dealing with racial turmoil in Memphis, and she kind of glossed over her father, but she didn't even talk about her father's role in the MLK assassination that deeply. But she did kind of talk. She did talk about it, not kind of talk about it, in the Oprah article right here. Let's see. The man in the picture. How I came to terms with my father's secret CIA past. Right. This is worth a read. Her family's secrets were too troubling to face, so she willfully kept herself in the dark. Now, Letta McCullough Selesky, finally reckons with her father and the truth. She's writing a book about this, a little memoir. That's the famous picture I'm talking about of them pointing, and he's the guy kneeling down, looking ahead, but got a towel on the face of Dr. King. Dr. King got his legs stretched out. Y'all see all this, right? Oh, I'm not showing the screen. Well, I mean, Oprah agent. I mean, she is a billionaire. You don't get wealthy by playing nice. You know, you got to do some dirty stuff to become that wealthy. I don't think nobody can make $1 billion clean. But I thought I was sharing the screen about the Oprah, the old magazine. But let me go over to that other side. I want to talk about that and read a little bit, and we'll close it out, and we'll pick it up. I'm trying to get her on the show. Y'all want to hear her point of view? Sister Lita McCullough. You want to hear how she talk about how she see her father's legacy? We'll get on the show. I'll read a little bit of this though. It's the screen sharing. Okay. I'm gonna read a little bit of that, and then we can keep it moving. That's the picture I'm talking about. Him. That's her father kneeling down over Dr. King. That's her and her father right there. That's Morel McCullough. As a young man, he was married to her mom, who was also from Memphis, but they got divorced when she was about 3 years old. So she actually was born, I believe, in Virginia, but she moved back home to Memphis at the age of 3. She's basically a Memphian. Went through Craig Mountain High School and ended up going to college, I think Northwestern and some other place. But she's a lawyer, so she's very successful. That's her father, who was not around that much when she was growing up because he was always on trips abroad doing stuff for the CIA. I say he was the first black commissioned officer in the CIA history. It's little, man. But y'all should read the article. I ain't gonna get too long, and let me read some parts of it. Because she was like Black Power growing up. She wanted to be a radical. She believed that, she liked the Black Panthers, all that stuff. But who knew that her father was not only he was a spook in so many ways. He was a CIA and had played a part in the King assassination story. Now, this is what I want y'all to understand. Just because he was a part of that, you do know that the government makes the final call. You know what? It's funny. December 8th, not funny in a ha-ha way. December 8th, 1999 will be the anniversary. No, I mean, December 8th will be the anniversary, the 21st anniversary of the civil court case of the jury finding the government complicit in the assassination of Dr. King at a civil court in Memphis. This happened on December 8th, 1999. The King family sued this local restaurant owner named Lloyd Jowers, who said he was the middleman for the King assassination. They sued him for about $1 or something like that. They ain't trying to get no money from the man. They just saw this as a way to get the truth out to the public about what happened to Dr. King on April 4th, 1968. So a jury decided that the government was complicit in the killing of Dr. King. It was a civil trial. James Earl Ray never had a proper trial. James Earl Ray was killed by the state to keep the truth hidden from the people. He died on April 23rd, my birthday, 1998. Because James Earl Ray needed, he needed either a liver or a kidney transplant. And you had donors from the private donors saying, we'll pay the cost for James Earl Ray to be transported to this specialist place in Pittsburgh to get the transplant done. And the state of Tennessee would not do it. They wouldn't do it. I mean, you had private people, citizens saying we'll pay the cost for James Earl Ray to be transported to Pennsylvania to get this transplant, and they wouldn't do it. So he died April 23rd, 1998, never had a trial. So Dr. William Pepper, who was a friend of Dr. King and also a friend of the King family and James Earl Ray attorney, they decided to sue this white man named Lloyd Jowers so that the truth can come out about what happened to Dr. King. And so on December 8th, it was found in the court of law that the U.S. government was complicit in the assassination of Dr. King. But they knew it even in the 70s because they had this special assassination committee on a House Select Committee on the assassination of JFK and Dr. King. The gun that killed Dr. King could be traced back to the FBI. They knew that back then. You read the book, The Plot to Kill King by Dr. William Pepper. I mean, Walter Fauntroy, who was once the secretary of the SCLC, one of Dr. King's closest lieutenants, they knew that he was a congressman at that time. I think him and Andrew Young and all them knew that the government was involved, in particular the FBI. So it came out, Judge Joe Brown. He told them that the gun y'all said is the gun, is not the gun. Judge Joe Brown, they sent him to Hollywood. They try to shut up Judge Joe Brown. They got him out of Memphis. They thought he would go along to get along, but he exposed all that. But I got you on this screen. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just running my mouth. I'm just trying to read a part of it. Because she reached out to her father when she was grown, when she was coming of age, because she had a second child. She got 3 sons. And her name is Celesky. So, she married to the other. And she had issues with racism and race identity growing up. So I won't be too hard on her, but let's check her out. Let's go to her website and read some of her articles. It's very interesting stuff. She's a very good writer. But I want to read something about the King assassination. Her husband travels a lot. She lived all over the planet, man. She lived in Asia and Africa and stuff like that. She's very well traveled, like her father, who used to travel for the CIA all over the place. And it took her about 5 years for her to read a 17-page document that her father sent her when she asked him about his life in the CIA and about his involvement in the King assassination. She couldn't read it. I mean, it was too, I guess, too traumatizing for her. She finally read, he said, the notes cleared up the timeline. In February 1968, a mere 2 months after he graduated from the police academy, Memphis's unprecedented sanitation strike began. The police department, concerned that the radical invaders might orchestrate acts of mayhem, asked my father to embed with the group. They were staying at the Lorraine while assisting with King's upcoming march, and Dad duly reported their activities to the Memphis PD Intelligence Division, which passed them along to the FBI. My role was to collect information and to detect any plans for life-threatening criminal activity, Dad wrote. 2 months later, King was dead. Dad was a mole until 1969 when a community activist blew his cover. The discovery forced him to leave town temporarily for his safety. Activists had long been aware of snitches in their midst and viewed them with the utmost contempt. When he returned, he resumed his regular job in the department's intelligence division. But how could he spy on the invaders? Wasn't it treason to undermine people fighting for black rights? I stilled myself and asked him as much. This was a huge conflict for me, Dad admitted, his voice growing wobbly. But enforcing the law equally, that's where I was coming from. By letting the department know the invaders were not a threat, we didn't have to go in shooting like Chicago did during the Black Panthers raid. He referring to Fred Hampton. What happened to Fred Hampton December 4th, 69. 2 activists died in the incident and in a hail of police bullets. What he was saying almost made sense. I'm going to read this part and I'm going to shut it down. When Dad and I started talking about the assassination, his tone turned sorrowful. He didn't cry that day, he said. Numbed by shock, he locked into his professional duties. But a week earlier, when National Guard troops flooded the streets following King's first chaotic Memphis march, it was a sabotage job by agent provocateurs. He'd been overcome. I felt like those tanks were there to occupy the African American community, he said. It didn't matter that I was a police officer. They would have turned that 50 caliber machine gun on me. In my experience, soldiers, police officers, and CIA officers perform out of a sense of duty rather than how they feel about an assignment. How did I feel? I felt oppressed. CIA. Finally, I asked him what I spent decades wondering. Do you think James Earl Ray acted alone? Or do you think the government saw Dr. King as a threat to national security and targeted him? After all, an FBI memo had called King the most dangerous Negro in the nation. Dead side. I always believed that the U.S. government wouldn't assassinate its own citizens, he said. I still believe that. Now, that's the words of Morel McCullough, right? And interesting. So y'all take what y'all want with it, but now y'all know the name of that dude over Dr. King, kind of brooding over Dr. King. And like I said, I reached out to him 5 years ago. He didn't want to talk. His daughter just reached out to him. Now she's writing a book called The Kneeling. The Kneeling, I think it's Kneeing. I'm going to reach out to her and get her perspective as well. But go to her website. Let me put up their website once again. Find that well. Thank y'all for being patient. I appreciate it. A lot of information to take. I mean, it's a lot of information for me. Try to put it all in for y'all. That's all right here. Lita McCullough Selesky. LitaSelesky.com. That's her website. Check her out. Look at her media. I mean, she's a very prolific author, writer, essayist, and real biography. Lita McCullough Selesky is a litigator turned essayist and memorist whose work has been featured in The Atlantic, The New York Times, The Griot, The Oprah Magazine, The Washington Post, OZ, and Manifest Station. Her essay, The Man in the Picture, published in The Oprah Magazine, was selected as a notable essay in Best American Essays 2019. An alumna of the 2016 Community of Writers at Squaw Valley Nonfiction and Screenwriter Workshops, as well as the Jurassic, the Jurassic Resident Artist Program, year-long writing your book-length narrative workshop. She is the author of the forthcoming father-daughter memoir, The Kneeling Man. It's The Kneeling Man, like Kaepernick, I says, kneel, kneel, kneel. We love to kneel, don't we? But anyway, that's their sister's website. Check her out. We'll try to reach out to her, see if she won't be on the show. Lita McCullough Selesky at litaselesky.com. Okay? Y'all got that? Yeah, I think I talked about most of what I wanted to talk about. I mean, it's so much to go through. And I hope that I have been of service to you all. And thank you all who could receive the message. And okay, Brian Brown said, Brother Ron, I really want you to look up Donald DeFreeze before you make a decision regarding GMJ. I know Donald DeFreeze is a guy known as CK, right? Sudanese Liberation Army, the so-called kidnapped Patty Hearst back in the day. Look, you know I had Judge Joe Brown on the show many a time. He talked about going to high school with Donald DeFreeze. He talked about that. Judge talked about Donald DeFreeze on several podcasts I done with him. Judge is an interesting dude. He knows everybody. I mean, he recruited, our apprentice, Bunchy Carter, John Huggins, Elaine Brown, Jerome Pratt to UCLA. Now, Elaine Brown, y'all know about Elaine Brown? She was the only woman, I guess, leader officially of the Black Panther Party. Huey P. Newton's girlfriend, or maybe handler. Elaine Brown, read her autobiography, A Taste of Power, I believe it's called. I met Elaine Brown 17 years ago in St. Louis. I got a picture with her when I was skinnier or whatever. She actually did a talk at the Urban League of St. Louis, and I had an art show that was still hanging up. And she was very impressed with my artwork. And so she, I took a picture with her, and she gave me an autograph. Thank you for sharing your revolutionary art. But Elaine Brown, she had a boyfriend named J. Richard Kennedy, who was once Harry Belafonte's manager, who was also the feds. He was CIA type of dude, MK Ultra type of dude. He trained Elaine Brown. And Elaine Brown still live out there in the West Coast. I'm saying she talked about her relationship with J. Richard Kennedy, I believe, in her autobiography. So is she not suspect? And then you think about the Black Panther Party. It was a Japanese American that was one of the founders of the Black Panther Party for self-defense, right? I'm not talking about the Black Panther Party of Lowndes County. The Black Panther Party of Lowndes County, down in Lowndes County, Alabama, came before the Black Panther Party of self-defense, for self-defense, that was founded officially October of 1966. And it was one of their founders was Richard Aoki. His name is Richard Aoki, Aoki, Japanese American, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, also FBI agent provocateur. He was the guy that helped provide the guns for the Panthers initially. So this came out some years ago. He's died maybe within the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, Richard Aoki. Let me find, I got to go to my other show. Let me find. Y'all got me out here, man. Oh, no rush. I'm gonna find. Okay, cool. So, brother, the one, he's on the next show coming up. So he said no rush. So I'm gonna find this Richard Aoki. I know y'all be like, Brother Ron, what you talking about? But yeah, I ain't talking about. I don't know who Grandmaster Jay really is. I don't know. What I'm saying is, we should all give him I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, because I know the treachery, which is the Just Us system. I know about America, as it relates to as it relates to black people. I know that the only way they can bring us down is with our consent. They could not touch Marcus Garvey without our consent. They could not bring down Malcolm without our consent. They could not bring down Dr. King without our consent. Dr. King went to prison several times. They were trying to kill Dr. King in Georgia back in 1960 in that prison work farm. You know, his Coretta had to reach out to the Kennedys, or Harry Belafonte. They reached out to the Kennedys. The Kennedys got Dr. King out of prison. They were trying to assassinate Dr. King in prison. So this stuff is serious. That was 60 years ago. All right? This is serious. So a lot of times our great ones, they do go to prison. I mean, Elijah Muhammad went to prison back in the 40s because he didn't want to go. I mean, first of all, he was too old really to be going, to be drafted during World War II. I believe Elijah Muhammad was born in 1897. So why are they trying to send him to war in his 40s back in the 1940s? So a lot of our great ones, hell, Rosa Parks went to prison for black folks. Kamala Harris sent black folks to prison for herself. Rosa Parks went to prison for black people or jail. So I mean, don't compare Kamala with our heroes and she-heroes. She's not on that level. It's unfortunate. But let me find this Richard Aoki. I mean, keep your third eye open and clear. Let me find Richard Aoki before I get out of here. Oh, I didn't even talk about my cousin. Okay, you know, like I said about the history. Let me see. Okay, but let's find a Richard Aoki thing. And then I'm going to talk about my cousin, Julian Mayfield, and then I'm going to wrap it up. And thank y'all for being patient. Oh, my God. So much going on. Share this screen. I found him. I'm going to share the screen. So he said, Brother Ron told you so. Or he told us so. Brother Ron told us. Y'all ain't getting this information nowhere else, ain't? Oh, y'all see it, right? That's him. Read, you go on with, you go on a couple of things, but Wikipedia. Read this. Richard Masato Aoki. Sunrise, November 20th, 1938. Sunset, March 15th, 2009. Was an American educator and college counselor, best known as a civil rights activist and early member of the Black Panther Party. He joined the early Black Panther Party and was eventually promoted to the position of field marshal. Although there were several Asian Americans in the Black Panther Party, Aoki was the only one to have a formal leadership position. Following Aoki's death, the Federal Bureau of Investigation's records on him were obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, showing that over a period of 15 years, he had been an informant for the government. This is a Japanese American. You know, it's saying Japanese American, they experienced a lot of abuse during World War II, those concentration camps. So we all kind of oppressed, right? So that's Richard Aoki. And now, you know, he was cause of death, suicide by gunshot. Interesting. Let me get in. You can read about this. He attended Merritt College. That's where Huey and Bobby Seale went when they was forming the Black Panther Party. He attended Merritt College for 2 years, where he became close friends with his longtime acquaintances, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, the founding members of the Black Panther Party. The organization was founded in October 1966, 1 month after Aoki transferred to the University of California, Berkeley. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in sociology in 1968 and a master of social work degree in 1970. It was originally reported that Aoki died at his home in Berkeley from complications from dialysis. Nearly a year later, it was publicly revealed that he died of suicide from self-inflicted gunshot wound. His life was chronicled in 2009 documentary film Aoki. So I guess he died because he knew the truth about to come out. He killed himself, allegedly. So, but yeah, he was the guy that helped bring the guns into the party at that point. So y'all can read about him. I just gave y'all some money. Y'all probably learned this for the first time. But I mean, it's a lot of them. Y'all talking about bio busting. So we all agents. We don't know it. You understand what I'm saying? We all kind of like agents. We promoting something. We all been socially engineered and programmed. A lot of us don't understand that. You know, all this stuff with the music, the frequencies and all this stuff is programming. the Hollywood propaganda news. They working on your mind. So we all potential Manchurian candidates walking around here getting excited. Like the women at the restaurant in Dallas, they said when the music came on, they had to twist their booty or twerk it. They couldn't help themselves. They just had to twerk because the music made them do it, right? The music made them do it. Okay. See, the devil made me do it. We all conditioned like that. So I'm gonna close it out with my cousin and Robert F. Williams and Mabel Williams. See, they the real Queen of Slam. They got away with it. They actually went to Cuba. See, we gotta know about our real history. Why nobody never did no movie about Robert Williams and Mabel Williams? The real Queen of Slam, got into the shootouts with law enforcement and Klan down in Monroe, North Carolina, escaped to Cuba, did his own radio program called Radio Free Dixie, then went to China as a guest of the state of Chairman Mao of China, then was able to negotiate his freedom by giving the State Department and the White House important intel on China, allowing Richard Milhouse Nixon, to be the first president in United States history to visit China. That was a black man that did that. He negotiated his freedom because he was on the run from the FBI because they accused him of kidnapping this white couple in Monroe, right? In Monroe, North Carolina. Look up Robert F. Williams. He wrote a book called Negroes with Guns, right? Check out a little bit. I'm going to close it out. But yeah, so this is very important. I'm telling all this stuff. I'm not flashy and all this crap. I'm not the greatest speaker or nothing like that, but you can look all this stuff up. Take a look. It's all online. But I want to close it out with Robert F. Williams and talk about my cousin. Because I didn't know this about my cousin. I'm just learning about my family tree. Black people, please do yourself a favor. Research your family trees and your roots. Because we got some amazing people in our DNA. It's not just one person like Dave Chappelle. Look at Dave Chappelle. Amazing people in his family. Look at Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson came from a family of prominent abolitionists from Philadelphia. His daddy was a runaway slave who was a minister, a powerful, radical black preacher who raised an amazing son. Paul Robeson was one of the first black All-American football players. Graduated from Columbia Law School, amazing speaker. Malcolm X learned how to publicly speak. Listen to Paul Robeson. I mean, humanitarian like no other. They destroyed Paul Robeson. They crucified Paul Robeson. They killed Malcolm and Martin in 1939. They crucified Paul Robeson into old age. CIA tried to make him kill himself several times. All type of electric shock therapy and stuff. So he tries to be a stand-up person for black people. Paul Robeson can speak over 20 different languages. Think about how powerful we are as people. This is who we come from. So I was surprised to find out by one of my relatives from South Carolina, from Greer, South Carolina. He was raised in D.C. I believe he went to Dunbar High School, was a protege of Paul Robeson, and was a real revolutionary. He worked with Fidel Castro and everything. His name was Julian Mayfield. And I'm going to look him up, show a picture of him. And then I'm going to get to the next show. Brother Dewan is patiently waiting. Appreciate the patience. I just want to wrap this up. I just had to do this show. I just had to get out of bed to do this show, man. I hope y'all can hear me. Let me find it. It won't let me share it. Wow, come on, man. Let me share this screen. Did let me share it? It won't let me share it. Wow. Let's see something. Trying to share a screen. Okay, that's Robert F. Williams with his queen, Sister Mabel Williams. She passed away in 2014. He died October of 1996. I want to say October 15th, 1996, of leukemia. So he lived to be an old man, in comparison with Dr. King and Malcolm X, who were close friends of his. He lived to be an old man. He said, that's why they don't talk about me, because I survived and won. He said when we was getting in shootouts with the Klan and police in North Carolina, we didn't lose nobody. So he was a World War II veteran, a Marine, martial arts expert, a real action hero. And his wife, she got that gun. They ain't playing, man. That's the real Queen and Slim right there that they won't tell you about because they won. You understand what I'm saying? They won. And they don't talk. Man, I gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award back in 2014. I had a chance to talk to her son, who was a minister, and she died in 2014. And I sent my condolences, and he read it at her funeral. So her son, unfortunately, he passed now. He died from complications from Lou Gehrig disease. I think his name was Reverend John Williams, if I'm not mistaken. But he was lived in the Detroit area. But that's our real Queen and Slim. This is the story that should have been told. That could have encouraged black folks. Because the black man, woman, and child is the real Holy Trinity. And Robert F. Williams wasn't playing. Sister Mabel wasn't playing. They wasn't playing with nobody. So I want to show you my cousin. And I'll show you. Wait a minute. Let's see. Not show. There's so much history, man. Do the research, but also not do it just for yourself. Do it for your kids, your grandkids, whatever. Get this information out there. It's so much more to us than the BS they try to push. But so this picture. Is it showing? It didn't even show. Jeez. It's like they just playing with me today. Let's see. God, let me close it. It is so much stuff. But I hope that whatever name drops I gave y'all, just do the research on it. Okay, that's Robert F. Williams with Chairman Mao. I'm telling you, this is who we are. Black history is better than science fiction or any Hollywood movie. That red book that the Panthers read, Chairman Mao, that's Robert F. Williams. That's how he was able to get free and to make that deal with the State Department, with the Justice Department, because they accused him of kidnapping these white folks. He saved these white people's lives during a race riot in Monroe, North Carolina, and the government said he committed kidnapping, which was not true, but they was able to beat the charges, working at the University of Michigan, so, it was a happy ending for the most part. Even though he died of cancer, like he said, the reason why they don't talk about me is because I survived. They want you to talk about Dr. King and Malcolm X or Medgar Evers, not because they weren't great men, but because they killed them before they reached their prime. Medgar was killed at 37. Malcolm and Martin was killed at 39. But he lived to be 70 something. So, Negroes with guns. This nonviolent crap will get you killed quicker than having a gun. What he's saying. So let me show. I'm gonna close out with my cousin Julian Mayfield. Show his picture and give his respect to the righteous ancestor. I had no idea that he was the guy that helped them escape from America. Robert and Mabel Williams in his car. They went to Canada, helped them get to Cuba. I think they went to Mexico, then they went to Cuba. But it was because his car, because he was getting supplies to them in Monroe. Like I said, my cousin worked with Fidel Castro. So I come from that bloodline. So I'm gonna embrace that bloodline. I need to have some kids. I'm trying to tell you, I need to have some kids. Get this bloodline continuing. I'm fucking whatever. But let me show my cousin. I'm gonna close it out because I got my brother. He's been waiting patiently. But I want to give props. So I'll find it. I wouldn't even take. So this thing playing games with me. It's like a woman. It's just trying to play hard to get. Trying to figure this out. And I won't keep y'all. I actually got another show. So y'all in for a treat. Y'all in for a treat. Let me see. Come on, please take. Baby. All right. That's my cousin, Julian Mayfield. I'm also related to Curtis Mayfield, but I'm actually more impressed with this Mayfield. I'm more impressed with him. But I want to read something. Cause I mean, he was a poet, a playwright, an actor. He did some Hollywood movies. He wrote some Hollywood movies. He did a lot of interesting things. And he died at the age of 56. Unfortunately, he died October 20th, 1984. But he was a professor at Howard University. On top of being a revolutionary and a media pioneer. You know, he worked for Kwame Nkrumah, doing media for Kwame Nkrumah over in Ghana. That's my cousin, Julian Mayfield. Oh, let me read this. Returning to the United States in 1959, Mayfield was inspired by the success of the Cuban Revolution. Visiting Cuba at the invitation of Fidel Castro in July 1960, he accompanied Leroy Jones, who became Amiri Baraka, Sarah Wright, Ana Lavivia Cordero, that's his wife, who was a doctor, a medical doctor from Puerto Rico, and Robert F. Williams to Oriente, where they celebrated the anniversary of the attack on the Moncada barracks and the birth of the movement, July 26th movement. After returning from Cuba, Mayfield began raising money for food and weapons for Williams and ferrying them to Monroe, North Carolina, cousin freedom fighter. In August 1961, after a series of attacks by white terrorists, a tense standoff developed between Williams's self-defense group and white citizens of Monroe. On August 27, a white couple, Mr. and Mrs. Bruce Stiegel from nearby Marshall, North Carolina, accidentally drove down the street to the house where Williams and others were guarding. The couple was held at gunpoint and brought to Williams's house. They were held and released them a few hours later. The FBI, which has previously refused to take action against the violence perpetuated by white citizens of Monroe, charged Williams with kidnapping and named Mayfield and fellow activist May Mallory as material witnesses. Late that night, Williams, his wife Mabel, Mayfield, and Mallory left Monroe in Mayfield's car and made their way to Canada. Then Robert and Mabel Williams fled to Cuba while Mayfield traveled to London to meet his wife and from there go to Ghana, where she had taken a job with the government of then President Kwame Nkrumah. During Mayfield's time in Ghana, he was employed by the Ministry of Information and wrote for the Evening News and the Spark Ghanaian newspapers. He founded the African Review, a bi-monthly journal that featured articles by African descendant intellectuals, including Bessie Head, Preston King, and Neville Dawes, analyzing the economic and social issues facing decolonizing Africa. Mayfield established the international branch of the Organization of Afro-American Unity, that's Malcolm X's organization, and edited a collection called The World Without the Bomb in 1963. Mayfield lived and worked in Ghana until January of 66 before relocating to Ibiza, Spain, just prior to the 1966 Ghanaian coup d'etat, which had the CIA fingerprints all over it. So that does it, folks, for this edition of We All Be TV, The Artivist Thinks, Stop Provocateur. Thank you all for being patient. We got another show. I want to thank Brother DeJuan for being patient. We got another show behind this show. Like I said, like Drake, we're doing it back to back. Thank you all. If you like the words from Brother Herb, please spread the word. Subscribe to YouTube, We All Be TV. We All Be TV. I'm losing a lot of subscribers lately. I don't know what it's about. I don't know if it's CIA or y'all just don't like me no more. But it's all good. I hope I can get to 100,000 one day. Because I definitely would have earned it. I'm like the Barry Sanders of New Black Media. You know, Barry Sanders ran for a lot of yards, but he lost a lot of yards running in reverse. Because he didn't have no offensive line. So that's how I feel. I feel like I'm Barry Sanders of New Black Media. Like I'm running, I'm doing prolific stuff, whilst I'm losing ground. So it is what it is. I guess it balanced out. But thank you all for tuning in. Buy some shirts. You can wear Artivist art. Go to this Teespring shelf thing down there. If you're on YouTube, you can hang and wear. You can hang Artivist art, r2c2h2.com. I'll come up with some new t-shirt designs. Also, you could cash app your support, $ R2C2H2. You could Google Pay or PayPal it at R2C2H2 at gmail.com. You can even Vimo it at R2C2H2, and I'll come up with some more things. But thank you all once again. In the words of great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Y'all keep on producing and pushing. Peace out. I'm coming back to back.